Hello everyone, I did my pamphlet on Fragile X syndrome, and Fragile X syndrome is a genetic condition which is caused by a mutation in the S-linked fMRI gene. Fragile X syndrome is present at birth, and it is the most common known inherited mental impairment. The impairments differ from person to person, such as behavior, physical, and intellectual differences. Both males and females can have Fragile X syndrome. However, the symptoms are usually more severe in males, and I'll throw out some statistics about that later. The effects on development, so some major effects on development can be speech and language delays. Most males are intellectually disabled, and only about 1/3 of females are intellectually disabled. There's a possibility of anxiety and ADHD or ADD. Seizures can be present in about 15% of males and only 5% of females. And about 1/3 have autism features, such as hand flapping or their social interactions and social skills. And as they become older, there's certain physical features a person with Fragile X syndrome has. So usually you'll notice that they have long, narrow faces, large ears, and a prominent jaw. And then they also can have the possibility of vision problems, heart murmurs, and some sensory sensitivities to crowds, noises, or light touches. So some services that they would be provided is if they knew that their child had Fragile X syndrome at birth, right away they would qualify for an IFSP. If they waited later on to figure out that their child had Fragile X syndrome, they would qualify for an IEP through the school district. Other services, if they had speech problems, they would qualify for speech and language therapy. They could qualify for occupational therapy, physical therapy, behavior therapy. And at sometimes I had read that they would maybe be put on a sensory diet, and they would have help with being put on a sensory diet. The medications that they might be on obviously depends on what symptoms they have. So they could be on ADHD or ADD meds. They could be on meds for anxiety or OCD. And if they had seizures, they could be on meds for seizures. So depending on the symptoms that they have, it would affect the type of medication they would be on. And of course, the symptoms that I listed earlier, they don't have all of those symptoms usually. It's just a mixture, and you won't know it's a case-by-case basis. But those are like the main symptoms that might be present in someone who has Fragile X syndrome. So what does that mean for us as teachers? So some of the main things for us to think about as ECSE teachers is things like the environment. So if they are having sensory problems, or they have anxiety or ADD or ADHD, as teachers, we need to do our best to have a quiet, calm room using visual schedules and visuals throughout any part of your day, giving directions for anything, and modeling what you expect out of them. So that's super important, is using visuals and modeling the behavior you expect from them. As well as using direct questions, especially for a child who has speech or language delays. Instead of saying, "What color is the ball?" if you have a pile of all different color balls and you say, "Can you hand me the green ball?" and they hand you the green ball, then they can show you that they do know what you're saying without having to come up with the words to tell you to answer your question. So I thought that was super important. And also, they benefit from constant routines, and if possible, to be in a classroom without high behavioral needs of other students, because if they have anxiety and other things, being in a classroom with other kids with high behavioral needs can be very stressful for them. There's some other stuff in my pamphlet, but I'm at my 5 minutes. So I think that sums up the most important parts of Fragile X syndrome.